Hey everybody, welcome to Spill the Immunity. It is the finale. I'm to have such a great group of people to celebrate this last episode of season 48. Everyone is in the house this morning. Brennan, I don't know why you're not here, but we miss you and we have had such a great time having you on. So I see you already out in the comments. So thank you so much for all of what you've done. Sorry you didn't win. Mr. Brandon won this season's draft with his first pick of Kyle. And so congratulations on that. We'll get into that a little bit later, but let me welcome everybody that's here. Brandon, of course, the best co-host, along with Alex, the other best co-host, because these two guys have been like the key to this show really taking off and doing it well. And I can't thank you both enough for hanging out with me and doing all this fun stuff and bringing your energy and your accents to this show. We love it. It's been a blast. And then welcoming Mike, David, and Courtney, our super fans, back in the house to break this whole last long episode down. Brandon, where do we want to start?
We want to start first by saying that I did something pretty Survivor nerdy, and that is go back and watch the podcast of the fantasy drafts that they did during Survivor. And can I say that our draft was probably the best predicted draft of
all right.
RHAP and the specialist and there's a nerd one. I forget the name of it, but we also picked after episode 1. I don't think they did. So I think that goes to probably show just how much concentration focus needs to be put on that first episode to kind of understand what the editors are trying to tell us at the very beginning. You had the start of the Ava Joe thing, which rode this, and that's the DVD cover right there, is just them holding each other like this of the season. And then you had, I think, Kyle, almost a winner's edit. Maybe it wasn't intentional, but just how he even mentioned it in the finale, how he broke the glass and then made something out of it by helping Kevin. And I just think it showed a lot of his game really early without showing his game really early. So I think we should start with congratulating ourselves, of course. And then second, does anybody have any knock-knock jokes? Knock-knock jokes.
Knock.
Anybody? Oh man, that was something. So let's talk about we had 5. We had 5 at the very beginning of this episode. And what's your guys' take on leading up to the Mitch vote out?
Ooh, that's a really good one. I'm gonna think about that. Yeah, I'm gonna throw it to Alex really quick and see what was your thoughts on that.
My feeling going into the final episode, the 5. Yeah, I mean, I thought that it was probably Camilla or Kyle. I don't know. I felt like Joe was hard to kind of read the jury, right? David had this big reveal. He wasn't grumpy after all. Maybe he is a good actor, right? So I was thinking that Joe still might have it, but it was hard to understand the jury because it seemed like, right when they got to merge and they were going into as the first members on the jury, they were pulling their hair out. They're saying, how are you not getting Joe out? If you bring Joe to the end, they were making a fit about Joe even just being there. And so I was like, does he have this on lock? But it did kind of seem as you went through the episode, Joe was like, he was becoming less and less powerful and less impressive. And so going into the final, I was still kind of up in the air because, I thought maybe Joe and Eva are going to split votes and Kyle will get some. I thought if Camilla went to the end, I thought, she'll probably win because she'll be much better at speaking. And even if you looked at the last final tribal, Kyle didn't really have a very good, I feel like they cut a lot out, or he didn't get to say a lot, or he's just too humble. It didn't really seem like he really gave a great pitch of himself, in my opinion. Nobody really did. Except Eva. I thought Eva had a good speech. But going into the 5, I thought, okay, it's going to be Mitch, and then it's going to be Camilla. What I wanted was Camilla and Kyle to do fire against each other. That was kind of my dream, and to have that big. But, so that was kind of my opinion on it. I thought Mitch would go home, and then it'd either be Camilla and Kyle. But go ahead, Brandon.
Well, yeah, my question is, when it comes to Mitch, they talked as if he was going to win this game, and for me, I didn't see that at all. Now, what I did see was that maybe if Mitch was in the final 3, that maybe Kyle and Camilla were thinking, we don't understand his game. Maybe he's too relational. I don't know if we're going to be able to talk against that and defeat whatever Mitch has to say, because Mitch is pretty well spoken. So I think at that time they were thinking, okay, like I think we know how to beat Joe and Ava because we've tricked them a couple times.
Right.
So that's good. So maybe for that reason they chose to vote out Mitch. But my question for you guys is, was Mitch the best vote out for the 4 others remaining?
I think I understand the logic. Like, I do think for Kyle and Camilla's game, like going to the end with a duo to have a very unique game compared to them combined makes sense. And it's actually kind of the same way for Joe or Eva's best chance of winning was maybe to sit next to Camilla and Kyle, where both of them are having a similar game and might split some votes. And then maybe Eva or Joe could pull away. Yeah. So I think the strategy of going to the end with the duo and having a more unique game than them made sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I want to throw Mike. Looks like he's got something to say, so I want to throw it to Mike.
I always have something to say.
I know you do.
Yeah, I think Mitch was, editing always is, throwing us off, and always, they have to pick and choose what to put into 90 minutes, right? And so for me, I think, we didn't get to see a lot of Mitch's social game. And I think potentially Mitch had a very dynamic social game. He was very well connected with both sides. He had a lot of with Camilla and Kyle in the end, they were all kind of together from the beginning. So I do think Mitch was a threat to win. I was disappointed with the opportunity for the 2 pairs to kind of go at each other in that vote. That was a prime opportunity to take Joe out. So I personally was disappointed, but I think it was a smart game move. I do want to go back to something that Alex said, and I can't remember. The Kyle kind of edit in the final tribal. I think it was beautifully edited. And the reason why I feel that way is because it sets up for the audience his ability to then reveal, and for Camilla to reveal this big duping situation. And it really sets the whole story up really well. So if we hear Kyle talking too much in the beginning, it doesn't really hit hard when Kyle gets to reveal that. So that was kind of what my thinking was in that moment.
Yeah. I mean, even that moment, though, it didn't seem like he, I always wanted him to lay it all out and reveal the master plan. I mean, there's really only 2 moves in the season, them voting off Thomas and them voting off Shaheen, which was voting off Shaheen even that consequential? I mean, we can go into that and stuff.
I would say David.
I agree what you said about Mitch was when they said, if Camilla got to the end, she'd have this entire panel because she embodies what it means to be a survivor. Would they have said that about Mitch? Because what did Camilla do? They didn't. I mean, I think they knew what Camilla did because of Ponderosa, right? Because she came back and she really, I think that's where maybe a lot of the pitch came from for Kyle, right? Kind of framed it in that way. But would Mitch had that same thing of he came out here, he survived, he played from the bottom, he was like Camilla, he played up against all these giants and all of it, all the things, right? Maybe that's why they were so afraid.
No,
yeah.
What about Courtney though? Courtney, did you have something?
I kind of disagree, because Camilla, I just feel like she had a big ego, and she during her interviews and stuff, she was always saying we have this great secret alliance, and I do not believe that anybody didn't know that they were working together. They were obviously working together, and so that was a whole thing. But I'm just happy that my Mitch and my Joe got to the finale. Those are the people that I've been pitching time and time again, and my 2 people got on. I was sad to see that Joe didn't win. but Joe just didn't have a good speech at the end. He like completely shut down. It was like he wanted Eva to win. It was like he was trying to give it to her. And because he was like, I'm just a fireman.
Yeah.
And he was like trying, like he was acting like it was his own daughter the entire time that he was in that final tribal council. And I feel like that ultimately was the downfall for both of them to lose, because everybody, like, because Kyle just talked and he did the best speech that he could possibly do, and he went above and beyond. And the two of them combined just couldn't muster, because Joe just he just kind of
threw his hands up.
Yeah.
I did see the white flag. Yeah, a little bit with him. I mean, I didn't see it thoroughly through his entire thing, but he was kind of like, these two are doing their thing and I'm still just the firefighter. But I did have I had, a lot of accomplishments along the way. And I do think there was that between Eva and Joe, there was that. And she said it, I'm not going to throw him under the bus to win, but I'm definitely going to prove my game to help me win this, and he'll prove his game to help him with this. I don't think that either of them proved their game any more than they were just this out in your face duo and calling themselves the best duo. I don't think you could have had a better setup for Kyle and Camilla to then come in and go, hold up, y'all were right in everyone's face.
Milk. Yeah.
Yep. Hold your chocolate milk and understand that.
Can we talk about the milk?
No,
because
we have to. We have to.
About Jeff Probst giving David milk at the end.
Oh my God! I don't know. That
was so cringe, the whole thing.
Yes, it was like, we've done this.
Cringe.
I wanted to hear Shaheen
Great form
or Star like bring out a rap or a whatever, give us some of the music. And we didn't get that, but we did get David. But I want to go back to Mitch. Here's the thing that I always think about when I am, hear people say we can't bring Mitch, he's too likable, he's too this, he's too that. We have to remember that we've seen confessionals, we've seen all of the stuff that's happening, but they haven't. And so it is 100% perception on what they are seeing on the island and what they are experiencing. So to them, Mitch could have very well been a favorite. He is very well liked. We saw that. He's a great guy. Like, I want Mitch to be my friend already because I just think he's amazing. And we don't know what it was that they were seeing. So in their reality and their perception, he could very well have been a very big target. And what Alex had said too about Camilla, I think she sold a lot for Kyle at Ponderosa. I think many minds were opened up to this secret alliance or these things that were happening about their, secret duo thing in the background. I think she was setting him up. She was doing the alley-oop, right? She was setting him up for this big win. And so that played a big role in why Kyle maybe didn't say as much, because he didn't need to, because she had been his champion in the background.
Yeah.
And so, and I think when you get that against Joe and Eva, who, yes, they were a strong duo because they stuck together the whole time. Joe would have won if he'd voted Eva out, I think. And I think Camilla got the slam dunk of everyone would have voted for her, not only because of the story that she sold them, which was the truth about this duo that they had, but also her fire challenge with Eva completely blowing it because of whatever reason she was cramping up and all these things, but then still encouraging Eva. That was kind of like the last gameplay of Camilla in this. I'm going on, I'm sorry, but that's like, these are all the things that like are springing to my mind about it, because I think those two things in comparison. Mitch, we don't know what the perception was, and Camilla, she had that advantage being at Ponderosa. Brandon, go ahead.
It's better in Final Tribal to deal with the devil that you do know than the devil that you don't. So when it comes to Mitch, you're like, what's he gonna say? Like, what has he done? How has he survived? I don't know if they could have answered that question with him there. My biggest thing with Mitch, great game, great guy, blah blah blah, but I don't see where he fought very much, especially at Final Five when you could be the swing vote, unless he mentioned things. We don't see the whole entire edit, but if the Kyle Camilla two were as evident to everybody, and I know that people have been saying in the interviews that they knew that they were working together, and that could possibly be true, but they knew how close Joe and Ava were together. Not to flip anybody off, but that middle part, Mitch, I didn't see any of him being like, hey, like, you guys can vote off probably the most stronger people in the game, and kind of just felt like he fell on a sword with, him saying, oh, I got voted off because I was the most lovable. And then there was a lot of like,
that was sad.
Look around.
It was sad.
It was really sad. That was a really sad part of that.
Well, I thought they were doing that to Mitch to play to his ego, because he was like, oh, you're right. Oh my God, I thought I was fooling you guys. So they did the thing of, we vote you off, but you're happy about it. Right. Okay. The other thing with Joe, and I'm not upset that Kyle won, but Joe was in control of the whole game. He got to the end. He was in everybody's end game. Okay. I know that they kind of duped him a little bit by getting Shaheen off. He still went to the end with Ava. He essentially dragged 2 people to the end. He got 2 people to the end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Are you talking about
control of every vote? He basically, manipulated Kyle the entire time to not vote him. So I'm not saying that Joe. I kind of wanted to see Joe win because he's also a firefighter. Okay, he's a dad. I'm not one to like. I'm usually on the strategy side. Like, I'm usually like, well, you got to go with the person with the best strategy and the best game. And I don't know if it was Kyle because he wasn't really in control. Joe was in control of that whole alliance. Was he duping them with Camilla? Well, only up until the very end when they voted Shaheen off. And the only reason they had to vote Shaheen off is so, Camilla and Kyle were definitely in the end, right? And that did turn out to be true. So there was some, strategy involved in that. I don't think Joe manipulated anyone. I would disagree. He was the core of everybody's alliance.
And Alex,
all things revolved around Joe. He was the godfather calling the shots.
It is hard.
Only at the end was Camilla and Kyle able to even do anything against him.
It's hard.
They just snuck under.
Yeah.
Joe.
Well, so but the sneaking under is the surviving, is the playing the game and not being the meat shield for anybody type thing. Plus, I would say in the same breath, I love tension. I would say in the same breath that Kyle manipulated Joe so much that he voted out his California girl, Thomas, and somehow had enough conversation to be like, oh, you know what? Let's now be an alliance. I voted out one of your 3. And then that happened. He's the one who convinced Joe. Maybe he didn't do too much convincing, but he at least convinced him enough to when David came up to him and said, hey, and kind of yelled at Joe and calling him a liar. Like, I understand that was part of the reason why Joe voted out David. But I think part of that, to even give him the thought of David, I think was Kyle and Shaheen kind of talking to Joe and doing just as much manipulation, if not more, than Joe. That's just my side of things, because I was watching the season as if Kyle's going to win this thing. So I think my perception is a little bit skewed because I was so pro Kyle all season.
You were, and that's true. But I got to run over to David because I think he's going to jump through the screen here in a minute. I know you got stuff going on, David. I got to hear from you now.
Yeah, well, I do think that this shows kind of how hard it is to win as like the honorable player, where there innately is going to be a little hypocrisy in that, because you do have to lie, you do have to do some things to get to the end, and then people can be like, okay, like, you said you were honorable, but there were times when you had to not be, and then also it's hard to be honorable at the final tribal council because Joe's the type of person, he's not going to throw Eva or Kyle under the bus, and what the jury needs to hear is like how to differentiate his game from Eva's. And he's not the type of person willing to do that. He's not the type of person willing to be like, here's why I played a better game than Eva. And that's the type of thing he needed to do
Yep.
in order to stand out.
Yep.
And that's just not who he is.
Yeah.
He's not going to do that.
Yeah.
So I kind of disagree with like Joe being the one that, like, Joe was the visible leader, but I do think like someone like Kyle and Camilla, who are trying to blend into the background, they made the moves when they needed to. Like, they didn't want to be the visible leaders. They wanted to be able to tweak the game the direction they went on the David vote, on certain votes to be able to swing the thing in the direction. So I think Kyle did actually play a more well-rounded game. So when he talked about that, he was kind of like the everyman. Like, I do think, yeah, he had a good strategic game. He did have a good physical game. He won that. He had a very good social game. To me, from the final three, I think he had the most well-rounded game. Joe obviously played a better physical game, and Joe did play a pretty good social game. But I do think having things that the jury doesn't fully know or that have recently revealed by Camilla is really what made Kyle stand out.
Yep.
Because there were some bombshells he had to drop. And
but wasn't the narrative throughout the entire season, Joe was in control of the game, come merge, Joe was in full control. Joe. That's what I'm saying is like,
no, I understand, but I think
in the final vote, right? That it was okay.
Yeah.
Kyle and Camilla made a move, sort of.
But Kyle, you have to give Kyle credit. Like, he read it correctly that Joe was very beatable. Like, even if you think that he's the thing, like Kyle was like, he's a visible leader, but I think he's a beatable one. And he was clearly right on that. Yeah. So I think you got to give him credit for having the pulse on that.
Well, and I'm just going to reiterate, he had the best speech. Like, the entire final tribal council, he was so articulate.
The lawyer,
exactly of what he did, and he knew exactly what he was saying.
Yeah.
As Joe, if I was going up against a doctor and a lawyer at that final tribal, we can talk more about final tribal later, but I want to say this is, first, I can't fault Joe. I think his white flag came out whenever he found out that on the beach that he was going to go final tribal against a doctor and a lawyer. And that probably just messed with him. Because I'm an effing firefighter, So with that said, if I was Joe, I would have started that with, keep in mind, I'm going against a lawyer and a doctor here. And so I would have tried to get that jury to understand that those people are going to sound better just because their profession. They've done that kind of thing. I don't know if that would have helped him at all to get more than one vote, but that's what I would have put on the table. I've forgotten everything else I was going to say. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I'm gonna side with the majority here. I think Joe played a great game. I think he was one of the most likable, dominant players I've seen in a long time. I think the dilemma that I have with Joe is that you see a lot of him sitting in the hammock during strategy talk. And so for me, it was like, are people just going to him and just being like, hey, what's the plan? And then people kind of like then figuring it out from there. Or because like there was maybe like 2 or 3 times where I felt Joe was like actively engaging with people. I think it was during the Mary vote. We see him kind of being a little bit manipulative with Mary. But like Kyle was really, and Camilla were really the ones in the background pulling strings. I think that the Thomas vote was a great setup for how their game was going to move into the merge. And I'm surprised it didn't come up during Final Tribal, but you can only talk about so much in Final Tribal. But the fact that they set that up with Thomas, duped Joe and Shaheen there, and then did it again. Yes, maybe Shaheen wasn't like the most grandiose vote out, but I think that it really showed what kind of power Kyle and Camilla had with Joe and how they were reading Joe well enough to be able to say, okay, Joe is leading the charge here. He's the godfather, if you will, but we're going to make sure that Joe feels a certain way during certain votes. And I think that's what really won Kyle the game.
I think, to add to that, Kyle and Camilla struck at the 6th tribal, the 9th tribal, and the 15th tribal, with Thomas and then David and then Shaheen in their 3 moves that were, I think, something they could pad their stats on. With the Joe thing, you could say that Joe got out David as well. Joe did vote Shaheen, but it was because I think the manipulation of Kyle and Camilla kind of with the fact that he has an idol. I think had Camilla and Kyle got people like 9, 10, and 11 or more consecutively, that would have hurt their chances. And this would have become a game changers with different people going home and doing this too early. But I think they were so strategic in making sure that they were never on top the whole entire season and kind of laid low, came up, laid low, came up, and laid low. And that was huge to keep them from being considered. Kyle got one vote that counted this season, and it was a respect vote from Mitch. Camilla didn't get many votes either. So I thought that because of that, their season was they were playing all season, and they played at the right times.
Yeah, I agree with Brandon on that. I'm going to get to you, Alex. We never saw Camilla. Every time her name would kind of get brought up, it would get shifted away really quickly. I think that was a manipulation that Kyle and Camilla were doing. Kyle was very strong on that. I think that that's why it just kept shifting. And the other piece is David and Shaheen, even though the Shaheen vote wasn't this, it didn't feel this massive. You have to remember, this was a tight core that they had built, and they got them to turn on him when there were a lot of other options available that were not part of the core four. So, I mean, that is actually a really significant move. But Alex, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, is this like some prejudice against a strong guy? Like, is that why he didn't win? It's because like they don't like strong guys like Joe? Okay. No, I mean, I'm playing the devil's advocate in some ways, but I'm just saying, I think there is another way that Joe wins, which like I said, going into I don't want to reiterate, but going into the merge, everybody is saying, how are you keeping Joe? And then, like I said, his threat level got down. I think that Kyle did, call it. I think you're right about that, Mike, is that Kyle did make that call that he is beatable, right? And he saw something in the jury that said Joe is beatable. So I think you're definitely right there. And then, Kyle got two people to the end too, him and Camilla. So, I mean, I think Kyle's a good win. It's hard when there's, I think there were some moves, but I think because of the lack of kind of advantages, Eva was hoarding all the advantages and never really played them, and they never really came into an effect. And, there wasn't really a lot of mix-ups in it. It's kind of hard to call, and then Joe was very stagnant. And so Camilla and Kyle, they made the moves when they could, and it just wasn't a season of huge moves and changing alliances all the time and all this different stuff. But I agree with Bree too, breaking up that Shaheen alliance, that was a tough, to take Joe away from that. And, Shaheen was going to take, so I agree with Bree on that. Go ahead, Brendan.
And to build your story, your survivor story, if you're talking about how you're hoping to get the jury's vote during that final tribal, themes are wonderful. And I think that Kyle's game theme included deception, and that was part of the strategy, and Joe's did not. So Kyle set himself up to where he could put a Camilla to fire and kind of screw her over at the end, because that was part of his theme. That was a strategy. Joe could have never done what he could have done to win, because he would never have put Ava to fire, because his theme was honor, integrity. So he almost put himself in a situation where he could not win based on, okay, if I put Ava there, then there goes my theme of why I should win the season. If I don't put her there, then I haven't done a big move enough to win this game. So I think being clever and deceptive throughout your season will always beat the honor integrity game if you have played a very wise strategic game of that trickery and deception, or as our friend Mitch called it, leveraging people.
Yeah, and speaking, and getting to that point, and I love the comments. It wasn't that super exciting season, but it also had some solid players where you weren't really sure who was going to make it to the end, who was going to win, because I think we did have a very good, solid final five with great players in it that we all liked, and we thought, maybe not Mitch, but maybe Mitch, we don't know, that could have had a chance at the end. But I want to move to Eva, because she did come in second. She did get the ladies' votes. She got Star's vote, Gary's vote in the end. And I want to talk a little bit about her game and what we think Eva could have done to earn her more votes. So I'm going to go around the room. I'm going to start with David.
she would never have done it, but I think if she had like won the final challenge and said like, Joe, I have to put you to fire, you know, and actually like made something of like, I think I have a better shot to win without you there, to be able to tell a unique story apart from you, as much as I love you. But she would never have done that. And I think that's part of the thing that hurt her and Joe, is because they were so loyal. They were never willing to do what they each needed to do in order to win. And obviously Camilla and Kyle both were. Like, they both were like, hey, I have to put you to fire. And they both understood that and respected that, even though they were close. So unfortunately, I don't think Eva was willing to do what she needed to do.
That's true. Yeah, good point. Courtney, what are your thoughts? Go ahead.
I have big thoughts on this. When Mitch got voted out, and you know I love Mitch, but if she knew she was safe. She didn't have to use the idol on herself. Everybody knew she had an idol. If she was like wanted to win and she did a big move and she used the idol on Mitch, knowing that Mitch was going to go out, then she could have gotten out anybody that she wanted at that moment in time. And so that's like literally would have won her the game, in my opinion. And I was so frustrated with that, because just like sat there and just said, here you go. It's me. But she knew she wasn't getting votes.
Right. Well,
and she could have done that to Kyle or Camilla and sent one of them home at that point, and it's still not hurting Joe or her relationship with Joe.
Exactly. She still could have taken Joe to the end no matter what. But I don't think that she shouldn't have used it on herself. She should have like made a big power play.
Interesting. I love that.
Mike?
It's true. It's true. You didn't see, you know, I think Camilla had the immunity necklace, so she could have got out Kyle, right? And that would have been a big play. And, you know, but she was too loyal, right? That would have been off brand for her too. And yeah, but no, that's a really good point. It would have been a good move. What do you think, Mike G?
Yeah, she stole my point. I thought I was the only one in the world that thought that. So thank you, Courtney, for making me feel not alone in this. I was like,
validated.
Play it on Mitch. Because it does make sense. Like, you lower Mitch's threat level at the final tribal because I've now saved him. You've heightened your own game, right? And so, like, the whole point of it would be to like put her above Mitch. And I really wanted that to happen. I knew it wasn't going to. Like, there was no edit in any way that was making me feel that way. Yeah. But that's what I wanted to happen. So yes, Courtney, I completely agree with that.
But she always said she always said that she was playing for the team. And that's the thing. It's like she would never betray Kyle and Joe. Yeah. She was too team-oriented instead of individual.
I think that's what her and Joe's downfall really were, is that they were so loyal to the group. I was a little disappointed that they weren't as loyal to Star as they should have been. Like, Star gave her the idol, and then they just like turn around and vote her out. But like,
Eva, then don't use that. For some reason, Eva hated Star. So,
right, but then they don't use that and be like, yeah, we got this idol from Star, and then we voted her out. Like, I think the jury would have really appreciated that moment, but they don't really talk about it. And they don't really, you know, like that's Eva's moment, is like, this is where I manipulated somebody and actually did something game worthy. And they don't really focus on that because they're too loyal and they're too, you know, and I don't want to be rude, but like goody two shoes, like they're just too like, yep, we got to the end by being loyal and friendly with everybody. And I feel like they missed a lot, specifically Eva missed a lot of great opportunities to explain how she manipulated people and how she worked the game. Because she just did it subtly, as much as Kyle and Camilla were doing it subtly, but more like audience forward. And Eva could have easily talked through how she wins the game. I also feel like Eva allowed too much of the Joe-Eva relationship to be Joe protecting her, whereas I feel like she needed a moment where she proved that she was protecting Joe. So had she given the idol to Joe, even though he didn't need it, I think that also might have been a good gameplay, despite the fact that he wouldn't have needed it, but just to show like, hey, look, like I had the potential to save Joe. I had power just as much as Joe did.
It would have been interesting had Joe and Ava came up with, and this is why Kyle and Camille, I think, were better than Joe and Ava, because at the moment where it's the final five, how cool it would have been if Joe and Ava are like, you know what, let's actually like get a one up on whomever else and say that Ava, pretend you're going to vote out me, Joe, and I want you to save me at the very end. And then we have somebody else go home and we have that one more game that does no risk towards us because neither one of us is going home, just to kind of one up at the top five, which is a huge place to have a hey judges, hey jury, look what we just did.
I agree.
That would have been huge, and she would have solidified, her loyalty theme with protecting Joe and added that extra boost for her and Joe. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, Alex, go ahead.
Well, you're just seeing that Ava and Joe were really just in survival self-preservation mode. They actually were never going to play the game. They were never dedicated. They were never like, we're going to play the game. We're going to make a move. Anytime that their name came up, that's when the vote changed. It was never preemptive. It was never, we're going to drive the vote or change the vote. It was, we're in danger. Okay, now the vote needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, now I'm really on the Kyle should win bandwagon. No.
Yeah.
You guys convinced me.
We changed someone. No, I have to agree. I think the biggest downfall, and this is the thing with Eva that was, to me, I wanted to see her drive some things. I also wanted to see how many advantages did she have and how many were effective. None of them were effective. None of them. None of the things that she had, from the advantage in the immunity challenge to the immunity idol to the knowledge, or
safety without power.
Yeah, she didn't use any of them. Right. And I think, honestly, I would have rather her taken that idol home in her pocket than play it for herself unaffected. Like, there was nothing. It was not effective in any way, shape, or form. It didn't do anything. It was just like, here, I've got an idol. I don't want it in my pocket anymore. Hold this for me, Jeff. Could you just like stick this away for me somewhere? Because I don't really need it. And I don't think that had any effect on anything. And so, like you're saying, using it on Mitch would have been a huge move. It wouldn't have put her in any bad situations with her core. She could have easily gotten Camilla out with it because Camilla really wasn't in with them. So I don't understand why that, or Camilla had the immunity necklace. So she would have played it on Kyle if she'd had to play it on anyone, right? Because Camilla had the immunity necklace at that point. So I don't know. For me, I would have put Joe in second and Eva. I don't know if I would have given her a vote. I loved her story. Don't get me wrong. She's gotten a lot of crap in the media about, the autism and everything else. And I don't understand why anyone would want to do that, but she has received a lot. And I loved her story and I loved seeing her out there. Go Minnesota girls playing hockey up here. That's fantastic. But it's, it's still like, don't use that at the end. Tell me what you did. Tell me more about your decisions and what you did and make a move. And like we've all been saying, neither Joe nor Eva were ready to make any kind of major move against people. They were just reacting. Any final thoughts on Eva before we move on to Courtney? Go ahead.
I was just gonna piggyback off of you, the fact that she, again, used it on herself, but also the fact that she completely turned around and was not they say that they played this loyal game consistently over and over again. I'm loyal. I'm loyal. I'm loyal. But she got the idol, and then she voted out Star, the one that gave it to her.
Yeah,
it was just completely hypocritical to me.
I'll fight back on that though, because she didn't promise Star that, hey, I won't play it on you. She just received it from Star.
But yeah, she didn't say hey, I'm about to vote you out.
But I don't think there's no promise there for her to have to. I don't think it was dishonorable for her to do that in a game of Survivor.
And she still got Star's vote.
I was gonna
You
say
know,
she got
and
Star's
and the
vote.
fact that she
Yeah.
actually voted for her was like shocking to me.
Well, I think that proves Star's like mentality too, is that Star was there for a good time. And I think, Star was playing the game, but in a much more like fun, energetic, kind of like, I'm gonna do the best I can and get as far as I can, and that's kind of my goal. And I loved Star. At first
So did
I
I.
was kind of like
I
was
want
a
to
little
see more
off
of
about Star. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, Star's not gonna last long because she's kind of on the outs and da. But she really became a very dynamic character.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that she was voting for Eva in the end, I think just proves how much Star respected the fact that they were playing an honest game and never felt like she was in on it. Like Star never felt like she was in on that alliance. So why would she feel betrayed? Why would she feel she actively gave the idol to Eva? It wasn't like Eva asked for it. It wasn't like it was Star's decision. And I think Star owned that and gave Eva the vote. And I respect Star tremendously.
At the time, I actually thought that might have been a good move. I was like, "Oh, this is Star's way into the fold."
That's
and
what
it just didn't end up that way.
Yeah.
But I actually liked the move from Star's end, but it just didn't work.
Yeah, but it was almost as if it was like, here's just a freebie. Like there was no negotiation of, hey, like if I give you this, will this happen? And there was no that. It was just like, here you go. Here you go. So it's hard to say how great of it would have been a better move had she like negotiated or had some kind of more to it than just, here you go. I just want to say that
Leverage.
I wish Star would have been a part of that Final 5 challenge where they got the letter. They had to figure that out. She would just been like, oh hell, and just
and had to do it again.
Oh
my god!
I do like that they brought that back, though. I do like that they had to run around and they had to figure that out. I think that was kind of fun and was a little playful. A little shout out. I know we've talked about it a little bit. We've talked it on previous episodes that we've reviewed, and we heard it in the comments today. Editing this season, what are our thoughts? Yay or nay? Was it a great season on editing part? Because we got some things we've never seen before in Survivor history. And so I kind of wanted to go and because we don't have a lot of time left already. So want to go around the room and start with Alex. What did you think of how they edited this season?
Well, I watch Australian Survivor, and I'm a big Australian Survivor, fan, and
the accent
prefer it in a lot of ways. The edit actually isn't as good though. The color grading and stuff, America, they have a really good edit. The transitions, the pacing, the color, all the it's very good in America. The edit of this season, it was kind of goofy. This is a goofy season. They're making all these jokes. They're taking a lot of creative liberties here with the season. So I thought it was good. I like all the boo god and this different. It's very playful, very fun. They got a new Gen Z audience, right? So maybe they're trying to do a little more Gen Z stuff. I don't know. So I thought it was good. I mean, Survivor. I sent Bree. You guys see this video online? They're like, you tell somebody I watch Survivor, and they're like, you watch Survivor? You're like, yeah, it's been around for 48 seasons. Like, don't you think maybe there's something good about it? Like,
shouldn't you be watching it?
Yeah. You got to watch the video. It's funny, but it's a good show. That it was funny. Could deal without the songs though. The rap by Star, that was terrible. Okay, the song by Shaheen, that was terrible. We saw some pretty the Jeff. What was it? It was taking him off. I was like, give me a break. Okay. Some of the stuff was kind of hokey. But
no.
Yeah, it was like this, it's the Kumbaya camp. Like, guys, we're playing Survivor. We're supposed to be eating each other. Not literally.
Yeah, we did not get knife in the rice bag, Jeff.
Yeah, I would
need a little more brutality.
Yeah.
Right.
Not this.
He cried. Like, that was big. That was a big.
Yeah.
No, I don't need.
That was okay. That was like one of the best Survivor moments ever. Like that's what everyone watches Survivor for, is the person, and even Camilla's, that was one of the best comebacks. Like, that is why we watch Survivor, is like, those moments. So that Camilla, we didn't talk about that, but we got to give Camilla credit, because that was like a Eva coming back from the brink of extinction. Moment there.
Mike, I want to toss it to you and get what did you think of editing this season?
Okay. I'm gonna be nice about it. So I think the editing crew, the team that does all the editing and all. I think they did a phenomenal job.
Okay, now answer the question as if you don't want to be on Survivor ever and make them happy.
Well,
I wanna hear that. How dare you?
Please cast me, Jeff. Well, I think it was great because as a comment earlier said, it was kind of a boring season. And like, if that's not the type of game you want to watch on TV, you need a little pizzazz, you need a little excitement. And I think that's where we get some of the goofier edits, is because there was really not much else there to put into 90 minutes. And so we get the Shaheen chicka wah 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 and all of that. And I loved it. I thought all of it was really great. I think the one thing that I found really interesting was that the final tribal count, the final episode, Waka Waka, yeah, exactly. The whole idea of, you know, it's personal, and it is, and that whole quote, like, it sets the audience up for like, we're gonna see blind sides, we're gonna see backstabs, it's gonna be great. Eva's gonna play the idol on Mitch, and she's gonna vote out Joe, and it's all gonna be great, and then it never happens. And so it's a lot of setup, and it's a lot of like reminding us what Survivor might be, but it also reminds us of what Survivor could also be, is this group of people getting to the end and making it just a pleasant experience. So they probably had a great time on the island. They're all probably really great friends. We didn't necessarily get the backstabby season, and that's okay. Editing was great.
I also did not get your backstabby answer, which I was hoping for.
I think editing could have maybe made us feel more like, for the people that wanted the fun, the goofy, and all of that, I think it was great. But I think that we needed maybe more survival stuff. Like, a lot of people have been aching for that again. So like, maybe that could have been something more of a focus. So
camp stuff.
We needed like an exile island on this episode.
Yeah,
just something to change it up. You know, yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Courtney, what are your thoughts? Good. That was great, Mike. I have to agree with you.
No, I agree with both of you guys. If I could see, like, from season 1 when they had to eat rats, or season 2 when like Tina had to dive into the river and they lost their rice, that would be amazing. But they kind of like are living in luxury now compared to that.
That's part of it, right? Because we've seen Fiji, all parts of Fiji that Fiji has. And
I know, exactly.
I know it's a budget thing. I know it's
Well, bring back that. Remember that challenge that they used to have, that like they were like, this is the place we are, and here's like stories about like trivia about the stuff of where we are.
Yeah.
We are in China, we are in Fiji, we are wherever, and then you have to like go through a maze and do that by yourself. That was fun. But editing wise, I thought it was great. Also, I want to be on Survivor, so but
you wonder why we have Kumbaya seasons these days.
We can't have a Kumbaya podcast too.
I really, really, really hated the star wrap. That was like a whole moment of time that I was just like, this is unnecessary. And like, could they not put like an argument in? Even if it's just like them just getting frustrated with each other for 5 seconds. Because you know that they get frustrated with each other at all times. They're living with each other 24 hours a day. They could have just put in like somebody and then like played it up.
Because we don't have that game, that other immunity game, or maybe it was just for reward, where you have to say what you really feel about each other. Who's the most?
I love that one too. That one's that I love.
That stirs the pot really, really well.
Or the one where you're like tied together and you have to like go through a maze, but you're all tied together and have to like,
or just blindfold all of them and give us a collar and let people run into crap all day. And
yes,
you know,
exactly.
That's always the fun. I like
the best episode was when they did the blindfolds.
Yeah,
that was my favorite one.
I want to get over to David. I want to make sure we all have time to get to some more questions. David, what did you think of editing this season?
Honestly, I don't have too much more to add that hasn't been said already. I will say it was kind of a goofy cast, so it was kind of a goofy edit. Like, you know, I think they were having fun with it, and the cast was having fun with it. So to me, it kind of matched. But I agree that I would have enjoyed seeing more survival. Like, Kyle talked about big moment of catching a fish. Would have loved to see it,
Yeah, I missed that too. I'm glad you said that because I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Did I miss
But
something?
like clearly there wasn't a camera crew to catch that moment, But it's like if we could have seen some more moments like that, like I think that would kind of give it more of an old school feel that maybe some people are missing, and give, especially with an hour and a half time now, just give us a more kind of well-rounded feel for what this experience was for them.
Sure. Yep. No auction, am I right? No auction this season.
And then there's no auction.
No loved ones. They need to surprise them and bring the loved ones back.
They did
right?
That
would have been.
They did letters, didn't they?
They did
letters.
That's not like giving mama a hug, right? You gotta so you gotta. I mean, that could have really
making them play. That's always my favorite. You're like, oh, my mom's here, or my little brother's here, and somebody walks out and they're just like a beast, like a David walks out, right? That's your teammate.
David's
and now they're helping you win. David's mom. She's probably this petite little thing, but maybe she's still a badass and she can get out there and crush it. But I always thought that was really funny because then you just like there are some that just like couldn't do anything. Like, yeah, I'm not winning this. I'm sorry, I just know. But I'd like to see more. I want to get to Brandon about the last word on the edit.
I just wanted, whatever I say in the next 2 minutes, I just want you guys to be still photoed, moving slow back and forth, paranoid about my every word I'm saying, like we did for our friend Joe. That was, it felt like 17 minutes of Joe, which I would say the edit, even if maybe the Mitch and the Star and the Chrissy didn't give you much strategy to fixate on or to have a story develop. There were like 2 or 3 Joe shows this season, and I didn't mind getting into his mind and the paranoia and stuff like that. It kind of helped us figure out what his weaknesses was. Brie and I talked about how some people watch for the cinematography and the storytelling. Some of us watch for the analyzation and the stats and everything. So I think it blessed those people with it. But I could have done with a couple of less hours of Joe on my screen, even though I want to see Joe back again and see what he does on the second season without an Ava.
Yeah. I agree on that. I love that comment. Yeah, there were a few too many things that I saw too much. I love the editing this season. I do like those moments with Shaheen singing his songs, and I want a little of that. I don't need a lot of that. I don't need the extended version, which is I feel like what we got with that part of it. But I think they're shaking the editing up a little bit. I think they want to stand out because they saw Australia get some editing awards, and they're thinking, "Where's ours?" So they're maybe putting a little more spin on things. Plus, they are livening up a season that didn't have a lot of those big explosive moments, so they're giving us their version of that as well. But I do think we're going to see some of that come back in season 50. As far as how this season went, I'm going to go around the room really quickly. Just give me a number 1 through 10. How does this season rank? How many stars would you give this season? And nobody can wrap their answer. Yeah, Alex, go ahead.
I'll give it like a 6, maybe a 5. Pretty low on my totem pole. I mean, like couple good moments, but most of it was, not my favorite. I'm coming off of the previous season of Australian Survivor, which was crazy. That was crazy. Okay, that was a crazy season.
So he's giving it a not good. That's what you're saying.
So, not a huge fan.
5 or 6. All right.
9.3 in the comments. So 9.3 out of 10. What? What are you watching?
Who said that?
Brennan. He's all about
9.3.
He likes the people.
Well, he said 9.3 finale. I mean,
Bro's real methodical with it.
Yeah. Mike, go ahead.
I'm not going to go as crazy as Brennan, but I think it's up there for me. I want to give it like an 8.5. I think because of the loyalty factor, and I know that sounds boring, and I love and I crave the blind sides and the backstabs, but I think it proves that like you can play the game in a way that gets you to the end and gets you. I don't know. I think it's an
Gets you second
8.5.
place.
I mean, you get to the end, like you get through the whole season, like you get to play the whole game. So, like to me, I don't know. I think loyalty is less appreciated by a lot of fans, and I really liked the not the kumbaya part, but like just the fact that they were willing to protect each other so much.
Love that. Courtney?
I'm medium about it. So I'd give it a 6 or 7 just because the people that I wanted to go to the end got to the end. I play with my heart, and I would play with my heart if I was to go on the show. And so I'm glad that the people that had heart like Mitch and Joe got to the end. Because I would play that way. So I would say 7, but I also, again, it was a little bit boring because there was no fair play or hands to like completely disrupt the system or
They voted them out early.
I like the people that are just completely crazy and just do something out of the box.
Yeah, I'll take anybody but Brandon and Abby Maria. Those two
Oh,
I
yeah,
won't
no.
need back, but I'll take a Sandra, and I'll even take a Russell once in a while.
Once in a while,
Johnny
yeah,
Fairplay.
exactly.
Give
They
me
mix
some
things up.
fun. That's the fun I want to see.
Yeah.
David, go ahead.
That was Thomas.
Well, it's funny because like I loved the cast. The cast was great, but I thought there were some really great episodes in the beginning. I actually thought the finale was great. I thought this was a really strong finale, but there was a lot of dull episodes in the middle, and that's where the season in a way is about a 6 or 7 compared to other seasons. But let's be honest, it's Survivor. Every season's kind of a 10. But when you're judging against each other,
This is true. Compared to all the other shows that are on TV, we give this one a 10. It's why we are super fans. Brandon, what are you rating this one? Final word on that.
Kyle as the winner, he was a 9 out of 10. The guy should be top 10 because he played the season with the people on it the way he needed to play and win with those people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Thomas vote out gives enough credit at all. The favorite season you guys wanted was dashed and killed by Kyle, the winner. If you have Thomas in there and Bianca stays in there, you have the season that you want.
I love that they got the bombshell of the steal a vote at the very end too.
Yeah, yes.
You're like, oh,
which did nothing. So the season that we all dreamt of was dashed by a great winner. I think in the season you had your Say versus Mary. You had your Joe Eva special moment. You had your behind the scenes Camilla Kyle. You had during the doldrums of the season, it was, if you should be mad at anybody, you should be mad at Chrissy, Star, and Mary towards the end, because the reason Mitch didn't get voted out before those 3 is because they kept on, eating all the coconuts and talking way too early, way too publicly at tribal council for getting off. So I'm going to blame those 3 for the doldrums part of the season. Had they done anything together, I love a good defensive matchup. This was defensive Survivor at its finest, and I'm going to give this season 8.4 on the scale.
I love this season. I'm on your side with this, Brandon. I think it's definitely in the 8s range of, I for new era. I'm not even going to go and compare this to the first 40 seasons because I could pick about 10 that I liked a lot better than this season, but for what it was, I really enjoyed it. I think we're going to see people coming from this season that have a longevity to them. Personally, in my book, I think Shaheen, I don't know if you follow him on social media, but he's hysterical and fun. And I think we're going to see Shaheen staying in the Survivor world and being ever present for a long time to come.
Yeah,
I think this is his area. I don't see that as much with maybe Mary or some of the other people. Maybe even Mitch, even though I really like the guy, I think he's just going to go right back to what he was doing and have really learned and grown from this, but I don't think he's going to dive in I don't even know if Ava's going to dive into it as much, or Joe, but I think Kyle will. Camilla will definitely be a standout in the future. And Shaheen, those are the people that we'll see coming back.
Sorry not to cut you off, but
no, go ahead.
I could see Shaheen on Big Brother, to be honest.
Yes.
Because they feed into each other. I could see him on Big Brother.
And I would like to see Joe and Ava on Amazing Race. Would love that. Waka Waka.
That would be great.
I want to bring it back. I love it. I think we're running out of our time here this morning. I have had the biggest blast this season. We have to do more of these. Brandon, more brilliant ideas. Alex, we got to find out if you really are over in Fiji. My opinion is they've been in Fiji so long, there might be 2, maybe 3 lost alternates wandering the island at this point in time, that they've just never found, because they've on Fiji so many times now, they kind of wander off. But we'll see. Thank you guys all for being here today. It's been a blast. And thanks to the audience for hanging out with us and for spending time with us. We had a nice big crowd today, and I appreciate it. We will see you guys next week. We're going to be back next week. They are going to be announcing on May 28th the official participants of season 50. And we've got opinions on that. So we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks, everybody.
Waka Waka.